complete this sentence, parents often say, more than anything else, I want my child to be, of course, happy. That universally desirable state of being, the ultimate goal. We all want it. Advice is everywhere about how to achieve it. So, how come happiness is the number one thing we want for each other, for ourselves, and yet somehow not the number one thing taught in schools? Think about what we grade today: productivity, performance, analytic skills. But happiness, we leave that up to chance. Why do we leave happiness up to chance? Because we live in a society where we built and maintain systems that emphasize accomplishments, achievements, and possessions as means for attaining happiness. I'm going to take this opportunity today to tell you why that is completely backwards. And the good news is we can flip the script, because science shows that there are specific habits that cause happiness, not just correlate with it, but create it. Happiness is a skill, and if something highly valued can be taught, practiced, and improved, then why shouldn't it be required, or at least offered, in our academic structure? As a professor at Vanderbilt, I made the strategic decision to assess happiness in my positive psychology class. And here's what I learned. Even the brightest, most ambitious people won't make time for their own happiness unless it's required. Here's my favorite finding about happiness that I love to share, which eventually changed the way that I teach. Half of it is genetic, your biological set point. It's too late to do anything about that. But scientists have shown that up to 40% is within your direct daily control. How you spend your time, what you focus on, what you practice. As the science on happiness evolves and becomes more nuanced, those numbers change. But the most important premise remains. You can boost your well-being with intentional behavior, and you can maintain those increases over time. As a cognitive psychologist by training, I started teaching positive psychology with some heavy skepticism of this research on happiness. But given how important it is to my students for the rest of their lives, I wanted to let them draw conclusions on their own. I couldn't have them change their genetics, but what I could do was assign intentional behaviors to see what would happen to their happiness. The course was built around empirically validated habits inspired by the work of Dr. Sonia Lyubomirsky. Things like writing but not delivering a letter of forgiveness. This falls under the umbrella of redefining and practicing forgiveness as an act entirely for yourself. But because we're trying to be happy here, delivering this letter is a no-no. Identifying one ungrateful thought each day and substituting it with a grateful one. Experiencing awe and wonder in nature as a way of reaping the benefits of religion and spirituality for everyone, religious or not. Celebrating friends' accomplishments as an important investment in social relationships. Would you guys make some noise if you're here to support a friend or loved one today? Wow. Well, you get a gold star. I don't know why you're here. You already have it figured out. Because it turns out that we're really good at coming together in a crisis, but we're pretty bad at being genuinely happy for one another's accomplishments, except for you guys, obviously. If you didn't clap, that's embarrassing. Or finally, lingering over your morning cup of coffee, slowing down to savor almost anything that you rush through during the day. Each week in my class, students were assigned a specific habit. They had to submit evidence of their practice, like a photo, summarize the science behind the habit. They needed to prove to me they knew that I had not just assigned them some woo-woo bullshit, and then reflect honestly on whether or not it helped. And I told them, I have no skin in this game. I did not invent these habits. You will not offend me if you hate them. Just tell me the truth. So yes, I assign joy. I make it mandatory. And what's wild is it works, but not in the way I expected. They do the habits, they reflect. One student wrote about spending time with her family to practice social connection. Connecting with my family did make me feel better. Count happiness as boosted. Another student said about practicing forgiveness, I'm a bit surprised, but I found this activity to be helpful. A lot of faith in my assignments. Being able to forgive felt really calming. I often hear that it's students' favorite class at Vanderbilt, which gets me invited to speak to other groups on campus. But is a favorite class enough to make lasting changes in an achievement-based society? One night, I was guest lecturing to another group on campus about the science of happiness, and I asked them if they were likely to try out the habits on their own. One student said, I'm not going to make time in my day for happiness because the joy it brings is fleeting. Another student said, happiness doesn't count on a resume. I'd rather spend my time doing something I know will pay off later. These students are playing the long game. Every hour, every minute, every ounce of energy is being invested in some distant future payoff. In other words, these students are telling us that happiness doesn't feel like a smart bet. And I get it, I really do. But with age comes perspective. Many of us in this room know that life can change in an instant. I'm giving this talk from a chair because when I was 33, I woke up paralyzed from the waist down. A ruptured disc impinged on my spinal cord, and it took me years to relearn how to walk, wait to see what mobility would return, pull myself out of a deep depression, and learn to live with the chronic pain that will never leave. When my students tell me they're postponing joy for later, I feel a sense of urgency they can't yet understand. A few months after the semester ended, I polled my positive psychology students to see if they kept up the habits. Given their enthusiasm for the course, I really thought that they would. But most of them admitted that they did not. Why didn't they keep up the habits? They treated it like any other class, forgetting about the habits as soon as the semester was over. I bet many of you can remember cramming for exams in college just to forget the information as soon as it became irrelevant. Yeah, I didn't do that, but I thought you guys did. I don't think that my students are telling me that they think happiness is irrelevant. They think that prioritizing their happiness will cause them to lose their edge. And they will lose their edge as they currently know it, but it would be replaced by something even greater. And here's how I know this is true. I have now taught some version of this class to middle schoolers, high schoolers, college students, middle-aged adults, and retirees. If the right move is to postpone joy, thinking that it will come once you get into grad school, land your dream job, buy a house, then why does a room full of upper middle class retirees who have many of those riches still sign up for a course on happiness? Why are you here today for this event on joy? Because we live in broken systems that put the cart before the horse. Education rewards test scores, not well-being. Work rewards output, not community. Many families applaud discipline over delight. We have all built and continue to uphold these flawed systems in which we're always chasing success and then moving the goalpost back, incorrectly expecting happiness to follow. But here's the thing. Science shows us that happiness leads to success, not the other way around. We know this because people who build joy are not just happier. They're more resilient, more focused, more connected. They recover faster, they lead better, and they live longer. All things I want for my students, all things we want for each other. What I learned from my class is this. We have the best shot at happiness when we belong to systems that treat it as a basis, a precursor, a foundation for everything else. And do you know who makes the systems? We do. We make the systems, the families, the classrooms, the neighborhoods, the boardrooms. We can make this change. If you play a role in a child's life, you can ask them what they did to make themselves happy each day before you ask them to achieve. Neighbors and friends, you can set the expectation that you'll socially connect on a regular basis. Start a block party, start a book club, volunteer together. Employers, you can reward your employees for using all their vacation time knowing that success and productivity will follow their rest. Look, the happiest countries are not that way because their citizens read the right self-help books or listened to the right podcasts. They're that way in part because of what I'm describing here. What if we all took whatever collective power we have and made sure that we create systems that embed happiness-promoting norms, which in turn makes it possible, if not probable, or even inevitable, that people will then be able to make and sustain happiness-enhancing choices. That is how we grade happiness and give it the credit it deserves. Thank you.